In this podcast, we're going to explore the arousal theory. We've already gone over some of the details, but what I'd like to do is introduce you to some terms related to the arousal theory that are not found in Myers. And remember that the arousal theory tends to try to explain human behavior that is not directly the result of, say, a biological necessity, a biological need, or biological drives. We tend to be talking about things like, why do we play? Why do we seek adventure? Why are we curious? Why do we explore? Curiosity, playing, exploration, all of these are known in the arousal theory as stimulus motives. So it's an example of a stimulus motive. So that term was not given, so make sure you get that down and have that information in case you see it on the AP. The other thing we give you on this slide is a working definition of arousal, which is in the black. Now, some of the ideas that came out of psychological research into arousal are one of the examples is the Yerkes-Dodson law. And this is, again, kind of tangentially related. Whenever discussion of arousal theory comes up, Yerkes-Dodson comes up because, again, it was the result of research around arousal. And what researchers were looking at is, how does arousal relate to performance, whether it be job performance, whether it be a test that a student is taking. Think of any type of activity that is measured and quantifiable. At its most basic, the Yerkes-Dodson law basically says there's a relationship between arousal and performance. And it says for most activities, and again, most, right? Moderate arousal results or yields the best performance. It also goes on to say that basically if arousal is too low or too high, performance can suffer. Performance becomes lower. The other interesting thing that Yerkes-Dodson law posits is that easy tasks actually need a moderate to high level of arousal for us to do them successfully. And difficult tasks require a low to moderate level of arousal. And think about this. I always give this example. Think about a job such as surgery that takes steady hands, and imagine a surgeon. We don't want her to be too anxious or too aroused, right? Her hands would be shaking because it's all connected to the central nervous system. So again, you would want a low level of arousal. There are actually two graphs, even though you were only given one, that are related to the Yerkes-Dodson law. Let's take a look at these two graphs. So this one is your basic graph that basically says, right, moderate arousal, and arousal's on this axis, and peers performance on this axis, that basically arousal, when it's moderate, results in the best performance. And we see that right here, right? And we see that when arousal is low or high, we see that performance is low, right? So here's the other graph that I believe was in Myers. This tends to separate out, it actually does separate out difficult tasks from easy tasks. And again, arousal is here. We measure from low to high, and performance from low to high is here. So you can see on a difficult task, which is in blue, right? When arousal is too low, obviously our performance is low. But we can see that our performance is increasing as arousal increases slowly. So we're still on the lower end, right? But now we discover that our performance continues to decline as arousal increases, right? So we're in the lower quadrant here. And conversely, with easy tasks, we can see that our performance is low, not very good, and it tends to increase right here as our arousal is increasing. And then obviously there's a point where it becomes too high and we eventually go down.